Okay, friends, I'm back with part 3, Dethroning the Idol from the book Present Over Perfect. Okay, Busyness is an Illness of the Spirit by Eugene Peterson. I come from a long line of hard workers, sheet metal workers, farmers, people whom work is an estimable thing, something to respect and be grateful for. I got my first summer job when I was 11. I rode my bike 2 miles to the windsurfer shop down by the marina in South Haven, and while the owner and his friends, all in their 20s, slept off hangovers and ran out to the beach at a moment's notice if a wind piped up, I decorated the shop's window displays and rearranged the stickers and sunglasses. And I went to one of those high schools where much was expected of us. AP classes and academic scholarships to good colleges, high test scores, loads of extracurricular rounding our applications. While I was in high school, I was also volunteering several days a week and a few nights at my church too, devoted to the high school ministry, teaching Sunday school to grade school kids, and I worked at the Gap and at Bologna's much loved deli near my high school. In college, I was all over the map spiritually and couldn't be bothered to attend chapel or church, but I took a full class load every semester, worked in the library, and worked at a summer camp that kept me running from morning till night, quite literally. All that to say, I've been working all my life. Work has been a through line, one that I'm very thankful for, one that has taught me so much about the benefits of structure, discipline, skill, communication, and responsibility. But at some point, good, clean work became something else, an impossible standard to meet, a frantic way of living, a practice of ignoring my body and my spirit in order to prove myself as the hardest of hard workers. As I unravel the many things that brought me to this crisis point, one is undeniably my own belief that hard work can solve anything, that pushing through is always the right thing, that rest and slowness are for weak people, not for high capacity people like me. Oh, the things I did to my body and my spirit in order to maintain my reputation as a high capacity person. Oh, the moments I missed with people I love because I was so very committed to being known as the strongest of the strong. Oh, the quiet moments alone with God I sacrificed in order to cross a few things off the to-do list I worshipped. Productivity became my idol, the thing I loved and valued above all else. We all have these complicated tangles of belief and identity and narrative. And one of the early stories I told myself is that my ability to get it done is what kept me around. I wasn't beautiful, I didn't have a special or delicate skill, but I could get stuff done. It seemed to me that ability was my entrance into the rooms into which I wanted to be invited. I couldn't imagine a world of unconditional love or grace where people simply enter into rooms because the door is open to everyone. The world that made sense to me was a world of earning and proving, and I was gutting it out just like everyone around me, frantically trying to prove my worth. Over time, a couple of things happened. I wish I could tell you that when my health suffered, I paid attention, listened to my body, changed course. I did not. I kept going when I was sick, when I was pregnant, when I was still bleeding from a miscarriage. I kept going when I had vertigo, seasick on dry land, when I couldn't sleep past 3 a.m., when I threw up a couple of times a week in stressful situations. But what I eventually realized is that the return on investment was not what I imagined, and that the expectations were only greater and greater. When you devote yourself to being known as the most responsible person anyone knows, more and more people call on you to be that highly responsible person. That's how it works. So the armload of things I was carrying became higher and higher, heavier and heavier, more and more precarious. At the same time, I was more and more aware that I was miserable. Not all the time, of course, but sometimes, in those rare moments when I let myself really feel honestly instead of filling in the right places, the right answers, I realized with great surprise that this way of living was not making me happy at all. People called me tough and capable, and they said I was someone they could count on. Those are all nice things, kind of, but they're not the same as loving or kind or joyful. I was not those things. I believed that work would save me, make me happy, solve my problems, that if I absolutely wore myself out, happiness would be waiting for me on the other side of all that work. But it wasn't. On the other side was just more work, more expectations, more responsibility. I trained a whole group of people to know that I would never say no. I would never say, "This is too much." I would never ask for more time or space. I would never bow out. And so they kept asking, and I was everyone's responsible girl. And I was so depleted I couldn't even remember what whole felt like. I felt used up by the work, but of course it was I who was using the work, not the other way around. I was using it to avoid something, to evade something. I was using it to prevent myself from becoming acquainted with the self who sat hidden by all the accomplishment. I wanted to get to know that person, make friends with her. I wanted to learn to beckon her out from behind the accomplishment, and when the wind piped up, take her off to the sea. Next chapter, you put up the chairs. I hope you live a life you're proud of. If you find that you are not, I hope you have the strength to start all over again. F. Scott Fitzgerald. I was at a pool party with some of my oldest and most favorite friends. I've known them since high school, so at this point they feel more like sisters. Anyone who knew you as an adolescent and still wants to spend time with you is a true friend. And really, their opportunity to blackmail you with stories of who you kissed and photos of you in overalls is enough reason to keep them around. We don't see each other nearly often enough, but when we do, we fall right back into familiar rhythm, like a song we've been singing all our lives. While we watch our kids jump off the diving board and dive for rings, while Jenny's husband grilled chicken and we drank lemonade icy from the cooler, we had the same conversation we always have when we see each other. We should get together more. It's just so busy. Everyone's so busy. Kids, school, right? Work is insane. Piano and hockey, in laws and baby showers, and moving houses and book clubs. And who has time? And then someone buttoned up the conversation the same way we always do. But what are you going to do? We murmured agreement, sipped our lemonade, dangled our legs in the cool water, reminded our kids not to run near the pool. And on the way home, I couldn't help but think about that conversation, and in particular, that phrase, but what are you doing? Well, but what are you going to do? Yeah. There we were, women in our 30s, educated, married, mothers, women who have careers, who managed homes and oversee companies. And there we were, utterly resigned to lives that feel overly busy and pressurized, disconnected and exhausted. But that's shifting the blame, right? Who's the boss if not us? Who's forcing us to live this way? Or possibly, do we not want to face the answer to that question, preferring to believe that we can't possibly be held responsible for what we've done? Years ago, Aaron and I were talking with the pastor of a fast-growing church, and another friend A more seasoned pastor. The first pastor was telling the story of how the church had exploded, how they couldn't stop the growth, how it was utterly out of their control, an inexplicable, unstoppable phenomenon. The seasoned pastor pushed him gently. You've built this, and it's okay to say that. You've intentionally and strategically built a very large church. It's okay to say that. The young pastor kept protesting, preferring the narrative of wild and unexplained growth. We had nothing to do with it, he insisted. Well, not nothing, said the older pastor. You kept putting up more chairs. And then our minds sort of exploded because it didn't occur to us that there was another option. We were all raised to build, build, build. Bigger is better, more is better, faster is better. It had never occurred to us in church building or any other part of life that someone would intentionally keep something small or deliberately do something slow. This conversation happened more than a decade ago, before slow food and artisanal everything, before a cultural return to handmade and homemade, toward limited editions and small batch cooking. And even though small batch cooking is now all the rage, for those of us who came of age in the more is more mentality, it can be hard to grasp the idea that we have some say over the size of our own lives, that we have the agency and authority and freedom to make them smaller or larger, heavier or lighter. We were playing Legos a few weeks ago, and Aaron and I asked Henry about what he wants for our family in the next year. More adventures? More trips? Does he want to play soccer again? Does he want to start piano or move to a different town or get bunk beds? More this, he said. More time all together like this. And at home. I like it when we're all together at home. Aaron and I looked at one another over his head, letting the other know that we heard it, too, that we were paying attention. Aaron and I are both intense, passionate people. We're artists and makers, and neither of us ever saw ourselves in a leave work at the office, 9 to 5 kind of arrangement. When we were single, we worked round the clock and loved it. And when we were married without kids, we did the same. We worked together, yelling across the hall from one office to the other about where we should stop for dinner on the way home after 10 p.m. But now those patterns are being upended for our two wild and silly darlings. And although we're making the changes for them, I can see how the changes benefit our neighbors and extended families and church community. And I can see very clearly how these changes benefit our marriage. Loving one's work is a gift, and loving one's work makes it really easy to neglect other parts of life. Aaron and I are talking a lot these days about work and time and calling, hoping to hold each one of them in their appropriate place, hoping to be honest about which ones matter more than the others. Being good at something feels great. Playing Ninja Turtles with two little boys for hours on end is sometimes less great. It's so easy to hop on a plane or say yes to one more meeting or project to get that little buzz of being good at something, or the pleasure bump of making someone happy, or whatever it is that drives you. And many of us continue to pretend we don't have a choice. The success just happened, and we're along for the ride. The opportunities kept coming, and anyone in our position would have jumped to meet them. But we're the ones who keep putting up the chairs. If I work in such a way that I don't have enough energy to give to my marriage, I need to take down some chairs. If I say yes to so many work things that my kids only get to see tired mommy, I know it's time. I know to take down some chairs. I know I've let my work win sometimes. I know I've gotten the math wrong, sometimes unwittingly, believing I could fit in more than I could. But there have been times I've hidden behind my work because work is easier to control than a hard conversation with someone you love. That's part of the challenge of stewarding a calling for all of us. You get it wrong sometimes. And part of stewarding that calling is sometimes taking down some chairs. We have more authority and therefore more responsibility than we think. We decide where the time goes. There's so much freedom in that and so much responsibility. That old question, but what are you going to do? I'm going to take down some chairs. The word that changed everything. The word that changed everything, of course, is no. I've been saying yes and yes and yes indiscriminately, haphazardly, resentfully for years. And I realized all at once that I'd spent all my yeses, and in order to find peace and health in my life, I needed to learn to say no. People love it when you say yes, and they get used to it. They start to figure out who the people are who will always say yes, always come through, always make it happen. If you are one of these people, it does cause a little freak out when you begin saying no. People are not generally down with this right away. That's okay. You may know that yes is an important word for me. Maybe you've seen my yes sweatshirt, my yes earrings, my yes tote bag, my yes tattoo. I'm not kidding about any of those things. Yes matters to me on a deep level. Saying broad and brave yes to this beautiful world, to love and challenge and harder laughter and dancing and trying and failing, yes is totally my jam. But you can't have yes without no. Another way to say it, if you're not careful with your yeses, you start to say no to some very important things without even realizing it. In my rampant yes, yes, yesing, I said no without intending to rest, to peace, to groundness, to listening, to deep and slow connection built over years instead of moments. All my yeses brought me to a shallow way of living, exhausting, frantic lifestyle that actually ended up having little resemblance to that deep, brave yes I was searching for. And so if you, like me, have to say many yeses and found that all that hopeful, exciting, wide open intention has actually left you scraped raw and empty, the word that can change everything is no. I know. I don't like it either. Yes is fun and sparkly and printed on tote bags. No. What if you saw someone wearing a sweatshirt that just said no? I did not want to sit next to that bundle of fun. But no came but no became the scalpel I wielded as I remade my life, slicing through the tender tissue of what needed to go and what I wanted to remain. My mentor's words rang in my ears. Stop. Right now. Remake your life from the inside out. I don't know a way to remake anything without first taking down the existing structures, and that's what no does. It puts the brakes on your screaming fast life and gives you a chance to stop and inspect just exactly what you've created for yourself, as difficult as that might be. It was very difficult for me to learn to say no. I did I did it badly, awkwardly, sometimes too forcefully, and sometimes with so many disclaimers and weird ancillary statements that people actually had no idea what I was saying. I hovered endlessly after I said it. Was that okay? Are we okay? Because I love you, you know I love you, right? We're okay? But like anything you learn, it gets easier over time. You begin to build up muscle memory for what it feels like to say exactly what you feel, what you need, what your limitations are, and a very interesting thing begins to happen. Some people peer into your face with fascination, and some want some of that, essentially, is what they're saying. Your honesty and freedom is giving them the permission to be honest and free as well. And some people are not down with this way of living at all. They'd prefer you continue over functioning for their own purposes. Thank you very much. Or you're so wrapped up in their own hyper functioning life that it's a personal affront to their value system when you say something insane like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Bless them. But don't spend too much time with them. Draw close to people who honor your no, who cheer you on for telling the truth, who love your growth more than they value their own needs getting met or their own pathologies celebrated. Our little cooking club, my day-to-day lifeline best people, we're cheering each other on along this journey. And it makes all the difference. We talk every day, usually many times a day, and our constant refrain sounds like this: what can you lay down? How can we make this simpler? Are you getting enough rest? Can I take your kids for a couple hours? Instead of competing for who's busier or who's more tired, who's keeping more balls in the air, we're constantly looking for ways to help each other's lives get lighter, easier to carry, closer to the heart of what we love, less clogged with expectations and unnecessary tasks. These women are like my training wheels as I learn this, keeping me upright as I wobble along, and I'm so thankful. I don't worry. No won't always be the word you use most often. I hate that for a season. No had to be the answer to almost everything. But over time, when you rebuild a life that's the right size and dimension of weight, full of the things that you're called to, emptied of the rest, then you do get to live some yes again. But for a while, no is what gets you there. Thanks for listening, friends. See you next time.